Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has confirmed that his government will recognize West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. However, he said Australia's embassy would not move from Tel Aviv until a peace settlement was achieved. He added Australia also recognized the aspirations of the Palestinians to a state with a capital in East Jerusalem. The status of Jerusalem is one of the most contested issues between Israel and the Palestinians, as President Donald Trump drew international criticism last year when he reversed decades of American foreign policy by recognizing the ancient city as Israel's capital. The U.S. embassy was relocated from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in May. Mr. Morrison's announcement comes after a period of consultation with politicians in Australia and allies abroad. Australia now recognizes West Jerusalem, being the seat of the Knesset and many of the institutions of government, is the capital of Israel, said Mr. Morrison, speaking in Sydney on Saturday. We look forward to moving our embassy to West Jerusalem when practical, and after final status determination. Mr. Morrison said that in the interim Australia would set up a defense and trade office in West Jerusalem. The Prime Minister also stressed that Australia was supporting liberal democracy in the Middle East. When the policy review was announced in October, it drew support from Israel, but criticism from the Palestinian side. Mr. Morrison's predecessor, Malcolm Turnbull, had ruled out following the United States in moving Australia's embassy to Jerusalem. Two other countries, Guatemala and Paraguay, have announced they would also make the switch, but Paraguay later reversed the decision after a change of government. The status of Jerusalem goes to the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israel regards Jerusalem as its eternal and undivided capital, while the Palestinians claim East Jerusalem occupied by Israel in the 1967 Middle East War as the capital of a future state. Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem have never been recognized internationally, and according to the 1993 Israel-Palestinian Peace Accords, the final status of Jerusalem is meant to be discussed in the latter stages of peace talks. Since 1967, Israel has built a dozen settlements, home to about 200,000 Jews in East Jerusalem. These are considered illegal under international law, though Israel disputes this. In December 2017, a number of states voted decisively at the General Assembly in favor of a resolution effectively declaring its recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital to be null and void and demanding it be cancelled. Nigeria's military has revoked its earlier decision to suspend activities of the United Nations Children's Agency UNICEF in the northeast of the country. The military said this came after extensive deliberations during emergency talks with UNICEF officials. Earlier on Friday, the army had accused the agency of spying for Islamist militants in the Restif region. Millions of people displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast are dependent on humanitarian aid. In a statement, the army said that it had lifted a 3-month ban on UNICEF's operations. It said that during the meeting it urged UNICEF representatives to ensure they share information with relevant authorities whenever induction or training of new staff is being conducted. The statement came just hours after the military had accused the agency of spying for Islamists. UNICEF staff train and deploy spies who support the insurgents and their sympathizers. The army said these were unwelcome practices that could further jeopardize the fight against terrorism and insurgency. It added, "This is not the first time the army has taken dramatic action against the United Nations agency." In April, the military declared 3 UNICEF workers persona non grata following leaked allegations of sexual abuse by Nigerian soldiers. That decision was also swiftly reversed. Nigeria's northeast has been devastated by a decade-long insurgency by Boko Haram and its splinter group, Islamic State West Africa. More than 30,000 people have been killed and many more driven from their homes. An investigation has been launched after a 7-year-old girl died while in the custody of the U.S. Border Patrol. The Guatemalan child, named as Jacqueline Calmequin, was detained last week after crossing the U.S.-Mexico border with her father. Officials say it was earlier reported that she died of dehydration, but border officials insist the pair had access to food and water while they were in detention. A government watchdog will investigate before releasing a final report. The death of the girl has brought renewed focus on President Donald Trump's hardline immigration policy and onto the migrants who are traveling from Central America to the U.S. border. The migrants say they are fleeing persecution, poverty, and violence in their home countries. Many say they are aiming to settle in the United States, despite warnings that anyone found entering the country illegally will face deportation, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP). The girl was apprehended with her father for illegally entering the country on the evening of 6 December. She was then screened and found to have no health issues. It says she was held in a location that had food, water, and toilets before she was loaded onto a bus with her father ahead of a 9-mile, 151-kilometer journey to the nearest border patrol station. But the girl began vomiting while on the bus, officials say, and later stopped breathing. When the bus arrived at the border patrol station, she received emergency medical attention and was revived twice before being flown to a hospital in El Paso. According to the CBP, it says she died there after suffering a cardiac arrest and was diagnosed with brain swelling and liver failure. Border Patrol agents did everything in their power to provide emergency medical assistance, CBP Commissioner Kevin K. McLennan said in a statement. We welcome the Department of Homeland Security's investigation and will review the incident operationally to learn from this tragedy. He added, some Democrats have called for resignations over the incident, while others, including former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, have said it is part of a humanitarian crisis on the border. It has been running high since the arrival of almost 700 migrants in recent weeks. Last month, as border agents used tear gas on a crowd of migrants, including children, trying to cross the border, the agents said that personnel had been assaulted and hit by stones. However, critics accused the Trump administration of a draconian response, while Mexico demanded an investigation into the incident. The migrants have traveled in large groups, dark caravans, for more than 4,000 km from Central America. Among them are many families with young children. Donald Trump has vowed to keep each migrant on the Mexican side of the border until courts have decided their cases, meaning some face a long wait. They have been spending time in temporary shelters in the Mexican border city of Tijuana and New Mexico, 180 千米 to the east. United States President Donald Trump has named Megan Mulvaney, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, as acting White House Chief of Staff. Mr. Mulvaney, 51, replaces General John Kelly, who is leaving by the end of the year. In a tweet, Mr. Trump described Mr. Kelly as a great patriot who had served the country with distinction. But earlier this year, General Kelly was forced to deny he had called Mr. Trump an idiot. This came after the quote was included in a book about Mr. Trump by the veteran investigative journalist Bob Woodward. Jen Kelly is said to have used the description repeatedly, and also allegedly said that it's pointless to try to convince him, Donald Trump, of anything. The president said that Mr. Mulvaney has done an outstanding job while in the administration. I look forward to working with him in this new capacity as we continue to make America great again, he tweeted. I am pleased to announce that Mick Mulvaney, Director of the Office of Management Budget, will be named acting White House Chief of Staff, replacing General John Kelly, who has served our country with distinction. Mick has done an outstanding job while in the administration. End of Twitter post by @real Donald Trump. Friday is announcement ends. Phase of speculation about the new White House Chief of Staff, one of the most prestigious jobs in Washington.